What's up, hobby friends? My name is Casey and welcome to another Miniature Rescue. This week, I want to talk about how important eBay really is for buying and playing Warhammer. So recently, Games Workshop announced that prices are generally going up across the board, unless you live in Australia, New Zealand, Japan, or China, in which case you're being charged way more than anyone else, so changes don't really apply. Congratulations, I guess? The point is, prices are going up on the Games Workshop site, but what does that mean for the eBay market? In my experience, almost everything you want that relates to Warhammer will be less expensive if you buy it from eBay. I'm not including the limited edition models or highly sought after kits, I mean your everyday average gaming pieces. Essentially the things that you're gonna pick up to start an army or add new units to an existing army. Now obviously you can get used models for less money, and they will be in a condition that may be less than ideal. I have plenty of videos documenting those kinds of finds. And while I absolutely love rescuing the worst minis that eBay has to offer, what about newer models? Or even models that just haven't even been opened yet? Well, you're even more in luck than you may realize. New in-box models and broken down larger boxes offer massive discounts that go beyond the standard 20 to 30% that most brick and mortar stores offer. Let me show you what I mean. Heading to the Games Workshop site, let's take a look at some of the newer Stormcast models. I'm going to be buying and painting pretty much all of these models this week and compare the prices from here and eBay. So let's start by looking at the basic troop models. Vindicators are considered battle line units for this army. There are older sculpts that are also battle line, but I'm building an all new Stormcast army that won't include any of the older models. A box of Vindicators is $50 for 10 models. Personally, I don't think that's too terrible, but let's take a look at eBay and start to compare a little bit. The same box on eBay is around $43. Pretty nice savings for the exact same box. But there is one more place to look. The starter set that includes 10 Vindicators that came out last year, what are those going for? New on sprue, they are $29. That's almost a 50% savings off of the Games Workshop website. Not bad, but what about something else? How about the bigger models that came from that starter set? Well, they came out with a smaller set that you can buy that has them, and here it is on the Games Workshop store. This is the only way to get that specific Knight Vexillor banner, by the way. You can't buy that model individually. On eBay, he's around 10 bucks. Between that and the other models, you might spend $65 for the same set, and they aren't different. They're the same push-fit models that came in the Dominion box set. Speaking of Dominion, how much is that to buy on eBay? If you look at the lower price buy now auctions for each half of the box, you're looking at around $75 per half. So the Stormcast side includes the $110 box. The Vindicators we already looked at priced at $50, the special characters that you can't currently buy, and an extra unit of Praetors that go for $45 for 3 models. Altogether MSRP around $250 for just the Stormcast side that you can pick up for $75 on eBay. Here's the thing, I am not complaining about Games Workshop's pricing, or in fact that prices are going up. Realistically, I don't actually care. I'm trying to point out that you can get tons and tons of models from eBay, new or used, at a very discounted price. Pretty much all larger boxes, starter sets, start collecting boxes get this type of treatment. And in more cases than not, the money is going into the hands of other hobbyists or local game shops. This is why I love to hobby with eBay. We can buy the new stuff, find the old stuff, help out our friends who need a little extra cash, or help keep the lights on at your friendly local game store. And don't get me wrong, I want Games Workshop to succeed as well, or else what are we doing? And by buying locally, we can do both. Your game store had to buy those boxes from them originally, so it all goes to help keep things running. And you can get some really sweet, inexpensive armies out of it. Earlier I mentioned that I was gonna buy a lot of these models, and I definitely did. I picked up a bunch of Dominion stuff and a couple of really cool extras that I wanna share with you. So let's head to the painting table and try and paint 3,000 points of new Stormcast before this video is done. I start by base coating everything with Vallejo metal color copper. This is the base for the gold armor. I want the armor to look like an old coin, so I'm using these pennies as kind of a reference for color and finish. I'll be taking this into an exaggerated territory later, but this is just the base. You can see that the penny has that darker copper color, and in the right light, very bright, almost gold shine to it. The filth and weathering are all on top. So the next step is to spray Vallejo metal colored gold from above. The good news is this gold isn't too saturated, and the little bit of green tint lends itself to weathering the copper. Here you can see exactly how it looks. This will make for a nice looking model with some color variety in the armor without having to go in and paint every shadow. And in the light, it gives off the same kind of shine that the weathered pennies do. Because I am going for a darker weathered version of the box art, I fill in one shoulder pad and the shield with a dark blue, then followed up with a quick airbrush of sky blue in the middle. This step makes it look like there was a lot more work put into a pretty simple paint job. This is a really good example of a time when you shouldn't be afraid to just pull out your airbrush and do a little extra work. The time you save by getting this effect can be spent by making each model look even better by the end. Next up, we'll be finishing off the smaller details. These models have a proper amount of detail on them. What I mean is that they aren't overloaded with small bits to paint, but they aren't barren either. There is a nice amount, and it feels fun rather than tedious. So brown for the leathers and straps, and dark steel for the rest of the armor. Now that the base coats are done, we can get to my favorite part: black lining and weathering. A heavy coat of Tamiya panel liner will bring a ton of definition to the armor. I like to let it sit for a few minutes and come back with a makeup brush to wipe away most of it from the model. The makeup brush is flat, so it goes right over the recesses, leaving all that nice enamel liner to separate the parts of the model. And because it stains the model a little bit, we get a nice grimy gold and copper color. After the black is almost dry, I introduce a very bright oil wash of verdigris. This is the exaggeration part of the process I was talking about. By putting this all over the model, it really sells that old armor look, and honestly, I think it just looks really good. I like to go back and forth with this step to get that verdigris in places that make the most sense, and wipe away the topmost surfaces, much like that black wash earlier. Once the oil wash is completely dry, we can start to highlight the armor and bring the models to life a little bit more. I like to mix a bright silver 50-50 with my gold and go over each panel of armor. I don't want to cover everything up, just enough to make the model shine, and more importantly, bring your attention to the upper half of the model. The last thing to do with our metallic troops is the base. Since I'm painting a little over 3,000 points today, I need to make a base that stands out while also being relatively easy to replicate. I start with a muddy texture and follow that up with a variety of green grasses spread around the base. I still want to see that muddy ground sticking through a few areas. Some of those bald spots will also be great for different kinds of grass tuff. I mainly go for a contrasting darker tuff, but there are also some yellow wildflowers thrown in as well. The bright bases make these models really stand out, and I love how reminiscent of old Warhammer they are. You know, back when everything was just one flat shade of goblin green. Oh yes, the good old days. For the troops, that's pretty much it. There are some minor differences in painting the models with cloaks, but I also only ended up with 11 models that had them, so it wasn't really too bad. The real fun part was painting the dragons. You need a super quick, extremely effective way of painting dragons. Well, this is the part for you. I like to start by priming with black all over, followed by a highlight layer of white ink through the airbrush. You can also accomplish this with dry brushing, so don't think you need an airbrush for really any of this. I do take my time building up that white layer more and more in each volume of the model. The muscle structure really sticks out, as well as each panel of the wings, so it makes it pretty easy to get those nice highlights right where you want them. Once I'm happy with that, I'll come in with some extremely transparent paint, specifically the golden high flow transparent line. For this guy, I went with a nice light turquoise color. Alternatively, contrast paint would be the way to go for this, either through an airbrush or just to brush on. The transparency of these paints will pick up on the gradients we established, making the white areas more of the color you use and the darks even darker. The more opaque that color is, the darker it is. It's amazing how fast this is and how good it actually looks. I'm also going to come in on the underside of the wings, the face, and parts of the arms with a pink flesh tone. This just gives that dragon a little more interest and breaks up that single color. Then my favorite part, covering the entire thing with a purple oil wash. These newer dragons have amazing recessed details, and the wash goes right into all those cracks and crevices, giving us an awesome contrast immediately. Once it dries, I come back with the same kind of makeup brush as before to remove the wash from the flat surfaces. From here, you can dry brush the scales with a highlight color if you want, or just leave it as is. Either way, awesome looking dragon skin in very, very little time. Before we close this out, I just want to reiterate that there are so many models on eBay right now, and that number continues to grow all the time. If you are looking for a less expensive way to play these games and get into mini painting, then going through eBay is a pretty great option. Not only will you be helping support your fellow hobbyists, but a ton of brick and mortar stores that use eBay to reach a much larger audience. As for price difference, here's where I landed on this army. We'll start with the Games Workshop before the price increase. I would have paid $660 for the models that I painted in this army. That doesn't include any of the extra Dominion characters that I didn't paint that I still have. What I actually paid was about $350 for everything, and that was mostly because of the dragons. Though I should most definitely mention that the large Krondus that I have came from my friends over at warpfireminis.com. A bunch of really great dudes who have an online and offline Warhammer hobby shop. Make sure to check them out for any of your hobby needs in the future. Links are in the description below. Now, this isn't a sponsored video. I just really like those guys and I want to see them succeed. The point is, I did include the eBay price of that model in my final result, even though I didn't actually pay for it. All in all, almost 50% in savings for buying the same exact kits through eBay. It's kind of incredible when you start to add that up over a longer period of time. Yeah. Well, that's it for me this week. Thank you for joining me on another miniature rescue. If you enjoyed something about this video, please feel free to like, share, and subscribe, as it really helps out the channel. Thank you once again for your continued support over on the Patreon, as I really couldn't keep this channel going without you. I'm Casey, and I will see you in the next video. Oh, and here are the final shots of the finished 3,000 points of brand new Stormcast models.